My name is Emily, and I live in a small apartment on the third floor of a building in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood. For years, I've shared my life with a little budgie named Kiwi. He was a bright green bird with a cheerful personality, always chirping, exploring his cage, and interacting with me whenever I was home. I'd had him for over 4 years, and he had become more than a pet. He was a tiny companion in my otherwise hectic city life. One breezy afternoon in late spring, I was cleaning the apartment and had the windows wide open to let in the fresh air. It was the first warm day after a long, cold winter, and the light breeze felt wonderful after being cooped up inside for months. Kiwi's cage was near the window, as usual, and I was sitting on the couch nearby, folding laundry and listening to some music. For a moment, I turned away to get a towel, and when I glanced back, Kiwi was gone. At first, I thought he had flown off to the other side of the room, maybe behind the couch, but I quickly realized the worst. The window was open, and Kiwi had flown out. My heart dropped. Budgies are small, delicate birds, and the city is no place for a little bird that's used to being indoors and cared for. I rushed to the window, calling his name, hoping to see his tiny green figure fluttering around, but there was nothing. Just the hum of traffic, the distant sounds of children playing, and the occasional siren. I immediately began searching the building's exterior from my window, peering down onto the street and across the neighboring rooftops. I couldn't see him anywhere. The city felt suddenly so vast and overwhelming compared to my small apartment. I ran downstairs to the street and started asking the neighbors if they had seen a small green bird flying around. Some had, some hadn't. A few told me they had heard a small chirping sound on the roof next door but couldn't confirm if it was a bird. Desperate, I climbed the stairs to my roof access door. I wanted to check the rooftop, but the door was locked. I knocked on my neighbor's door on the floor below, an elderly woman named Mrs. Jensen, who was known to be kind and always willing to help. She didn't have a key to the roof either but offered to help me call the building manager. While we waited, I kept scanning the rooftops with binoculars from my window. The neighborhood buildings in Lincoln Park are old but close together, with flat roofs often covered in gravel, old vents, and occasionally a stray cat or pigeon. The idea of Kiwi landing on one of those roofs scared me. Finally, the building manager arrived, and with a large key, he unlocked the roof access. I went up first, stepping carefully onto the gravel rooftop. The sun was warm, and the wind was gentle, but Kiwi was nowhere in sight. Then, faint but unmistakable, I heard a soft chirp coming from a small ledge near the edge of the roof. I crept closer and, to my relief and amazement, there he was. Kiwi perched on the narrow ledge of the neighboring building's roof, about 3 floors higher than ours. Somehow, he had managed to fly across the alley between the buildings and was now trapped up there, his tiny wings tired, no way to get down safely. I tried calling to him softly, but the height and distance made it impossible for him to hear me well, and I was unable to reach across the gap. I was terrified he might try to fly again and fall. I was also scared that if I tried to climb to the neighboring roof, I might fall myself. The situation felt hopeless, and tears welled up in my eyes. I immediately called 911, explaining the situation: a small bird trapped on a rooftop, unable to come down. The operator was understanding but explained that the fire department typically deals with people, not birds. Still, they agreed to send someone to take a look, knowing how desperate I was. Within minutes, 2 firefighters arrived, wearing their bright uniforms and carrying their equipment. They assessed the situation and agreed to help. They explained they had ladders and safety gear to reach the neighboring roof safely. As I watched from below, my heart pounding, they set up their ladder and began the climb. I held my breath, hoping they could reach Kiwi without scaring him further or causing any harm. The moment felt surreal, the thought that a tiny budgie had caused such a stir and that the fire department was involved in rescuing him. People on the street stopped to watch, some smiling, some filming on their phones. The firefighters carefully reached the neighboring roof and began searching for Kiwi. He was still perched on the ledge but looked exhausted, fluttering his wings nervously as they approached. The firefighters moved cautiously across the gravel rooftop, their boots making soft crunching noises. One of them, a tall man with a calm demeanor named Jake, slowly approached the ledge where Kiwi was perched. The little Budgie was trembling, his feathers ruffled from the wind and the stress, and he chirped nervously, looking at the approaching strangers with wide eyes. Jake spoke softly, almost whispering, trying not to startle Kiwi. "Hey, little guy, it's okay. We're here to help." He reached out gently with a gloved hand, trying to coax Kiwi toward him, but the bird flitted back a little, clearly scared and unsure. At that moment, I was standing on the roof of my own building, watching anxiously. I could hear the faint chirps and the firefighter's calm voice, but time seemed to stretch endlessly. I was praying that they could get him safely. Jake radioed back to his partner below, "I think I've got him in sight." "He's close but spooked." His partner, Mark, was standing at the base of the ladder, ready to assist if needed. They discussed their plan quickly. The roof was narrow and slippery in spots, so they had to be careful not to lose balance or frighten Kiwi into flying off again. The idea was to gently catch him and place him inside a makeshift cage they had brought, the kind used for small animals in emergencies. Jake slowly extended his hand again, this time holding a small towel in one hand to carefully cover Kiwi if necessary. The Budgie, sensing the gentleness, hesitated but didn't fly away. Step by step, Jake got closer, and then, in a swift but careful motion, he scooped Kiwi up. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Kiwi was safe in Jake's hands, wrapped gently in the towel, looking a little dazed but unharmed. Jake carefully wrapped the towel tighter around Kiwi to prevent him from fluttering and possibly hurting himself during the descent. Mark helped carry the makeshift cage up the ladder, and soon they had Kiwi secured inside. With the precious cargo safe, the firefighters climbed down carefully. When Jake reached the rooftop where I was waiting, he handed Kiwi over to me. I felt a rush of overwhelming relief and gratitude as I held my little Budgie close. His tiny heart was pounding rapidly, but he was alive, safe, and starting to calm down in my hands. The firefighters stayed for a moment, making sure Kiwi was okay. They told me it was the first time they had been called for a bird rescue, and that it was a memorable experience for them as well. Neighbors came out, applauding quietly, some snapping pictures of the unusual rescue. I thanked the firefighters profusely, feeling deeply thankful that these kind strangers took the time and effort to save my tiny friend. Once back in my apartment, I gave Kiwi fresh water and food and let him rest in his cage, watching him closely. I was amazed by his resilience. After such an ordeal, he was already chirping softly, as if telling me he was okay. But the story didn't end there. There were some unexpected challenges and lessons learned after Kiwi's rooftop adventure. I had to rethink everything about how I kept him safe in the apartment, and there was an important moment when I realized how much Kiwi meant to me, not just as a pet, but as a true companion through all the ups and downs of my life. After the adrenaline of the rescue wore off, I found myself thinking deeply about how such a small moment had shifted my entire perspective. Kiwi's escape wasn't just a scare, it was a wake-up call. That evening, I sat beside his cage, gently stroking his feathers and watching him rest. He seemed tired but unharmed, though I noticed he was quieter than usual. Budgies are naturally chatty birds, and his silence tugged at my heart. The next day, I took Kiwi to a local avian vet in Chicago for a checkup, just to be sure. The vet confirmed what I hoped: no injuries, just some stress and dehydration. She gave me tips on helping Kiwi recover: plenty of water, a calm environment, and time. I realized that the open window, which I thought was harmless, had nearly cost Kiwi his life. From then on, I made sure to keep the windows securely screened or closed whenever he was out of his cage, and I started looking into safer ways to let him enjoy fresh air. Word of Kiwi's rooftop rescue spread quickly through the neighborhood. A few neighbors stopped by to check on him, some even shared stories of their own lost pets or city rescues. It was surprising to see how much a tiny bird had connected people. The firefighters who rescued Kiwi even sent me a card, a thank you note for trusting them and for reminding them that rescue work isn't just about people. They said Kiwi had become a small celebrity at their firehouse, a symbol of hope and care. Over the following weeks, Kiwi slowly returned to his lively self. He chirped and sang again, perched on my finger, and even seemed to recognize me more deeply, as if we had both been through something big together. That experience taught me how vulnerable and precious life is, no matter how small. I became more vigilant and attentive, but also more grateful for the little moments, Kiwi's cheerful songs, his tiny wings fluttering, the trust he placed in me. And I learned something else: sometimes, help comes from unexpected places. The kindness and bravery of strangers, those firefighters who climbed rooftops in the city to rescue a little bird, showed me the strength of community and compassion. Kiwi's rooftop adventure became a story I shared often, a reminder that even in a huge, busy city like Chicago, small lives matter deeply. And that sometimes those small lives can inspire the biggest acts of kindness. Now, every time I open a window, I look at Kiwi carefully, making sure he's safe. And I smile, knowing that no matter how far he might fly, there are people and stories ready to catch us when we need it most.